Well, it is time to finally dive back into the Fummins build. I am so excited about this. We finally got all the parts we need. We're ready to go. We're going to be putting the engine together, getting it all buttoned up, painted, etc. And then we got pretty much everything we need to slam the truck the rest of the way together and get it running and driving. So that is super exciting. We took a little break from the project to kind of figure out what exactly we wanted to do, the engine, the chassis, and all of that stuff. And once we got that all figured out, we ordered parts. All the parts came in. We are now ready to go. So if you're unfamiliar with this project, we have this 2009 F350 four-wheel drive dually crew cab. So I bought this truck already blown up. So we got the cab off it, we got the engine out of it, we got the trans moved back, we got the engine, the Cummins engine test fitted in it. All of that is good to go. We pulled the Common Rail Cummins out of an '05 Dodge parts truck, which is parked way down the hill there. After we had test fitted it in the Ford, we pulled the head off to make sure everything was good, make sure all the pistons were good, everything looked phenomenal in there. Valves, everything looked good, head surfaces, head gasket was intact. So we knew we were good to go. The engine was sound, we just needed to do a basic refresh on it. So what we have is an OEM upper gasket set. I'm a big firm believer in OEM gaskets and OEM parts if you can use them. OEM water pump and ARP head studs. So we got all this stuff from Diesel Power Products. I've talked to them before, asking them questions here and there about different projects of mine, and they've always been super, super helpful. So when it came time to buy parts for this thing, it was a no-brainer. Awesome guys over there. I highly recommend them for your diesel parts. You know, I know there's a lot of diesel companies, but customer service to me is really the big difference between companies when it comes to stuff like this, and they have been phenomenal. So anyway, we got all this stuff from them. They were able to source the OEM gaskets and stuff for us. Again, ARP head studs. And then Diesel Conversion Specialists, they're the ones who make the swap kit that we're using. They sent over one of their fuel filter deletes. So we're going to be using a different lift pump and frame-mounted fuel rail filter setup. So we're going to be deleting this guy off the engine here so we don't have to deal with any of that mess. And yeah, then we just got the rest of the stock parts. We've got the stock injectors covered up here. So these are very susceptible to debris. So we're trying to keep them covered up and make sure we don't get any debris in there, but we are going to be throwing the stock injectors back in and then getting the truck running and driving, and then we'll mess with that. We can diagnose if there's any issues. We can track down which injector it is, if any that are bad and need to be replaced, and go from there. But I've said this a bunch of times in other projects like my LS Miata build and stuff. If you're doing a big project, at least for me, this is what works the best for me, is just get it done quickly. Definitely don't skimp on something important, but don't go too crazy and worry about all the little details here and there, because it's a lot easier to be motivated to get little stuff done and work on stuff and change stuff and buy stuff when it's a running, driving vehicle than it is when it's a paperweight in your shop taking up a bunch of room. So the goal is to get this thing up and running and driving, and then we can do upgrades and enhancements and things like that from there. So obviously we're refreshing the engine. We're going to do the head studs now and new gasket and stuff, but we're not going to go too crazy until we've got this thing running and driving. So anyway, enough talking, enough jibber jabber, and let's get to work. We need to pull the head off, get the mating surfaces cleaned up, and start slamming it back together with our new parts. Alright, so we got both our gasket surfaces cleaned up. Really the goal here is just to get all the leftover head gasket material off, and around these coolant ports there's some corrosion buildup, some just nastiness that's raised up. So obviously trying to get it flat, get all the other gunk off so the new head gasket has a good clean surface to seal to. So we got them all cleaned up. Now I just need to lift the head back up, hook it to the crane, and start installing. Put our new gasket on, and yeah, you know the drill. All right, with our surfaces cleaned, it's about time to put the head gasket and head studs on. Yeah, nothing much to it at all. So I got a big thing of this a while ago. I use this when I do put LSs together using stock head bolts. It just helps you get a more accurate torque reading and generally prevents you from snapping them. So they come with a little packet. I save the packets and I just use this because it's got a brush. Way easier. The instructions say, I've always done head studs and then put the gasket and the head on. The instructions specifically for this say to put the head gasket, put the head on, which the dowels will align the head, and then put the studs in. So, try it that way. Why not? Go. Working on tractors over here. Alright, well, it was a bit of a messy process before, but I did try to blow out all of these holes to make sure there's no oil in there, but clearly we still have some because they'll go in just a little bit and then they'll start to get tight. So basically what we're going to do is pull all the ones that didn't want to go in easy out, blow out the holes, try to get that oil out if that's what it is that's stopping them, and then try to get them in the rest of the way. We got a handful, 1, 2, 3, 9 of them. 9 out of 26, so it's going to be messy. All right, well, with the head on, I blew most of them out, no problems. A lot of them were just hanging up a little bit, which was stopping the impact, you know, because I'm just barely squeezing the trigger. And then I'd go in with a ratchet and there'd just be like a little tight spot and then they'd clear up. But these 3, I don't know why it's 3 in a row, these 3 will not go in. You start getting down and it's smooth, maybe a tiny rough, and then it gets to a point where you can tell like you're having to put some real force in to make it happen, which is not good. So I'm gonna lift the head back up and pull the gasket off and then try to blow those holes out some more and see if that solves the problem. All right, gotta move you guys out of the way. This was a messy process last time. I'm gonna move this cylinder head too. Oh, a bunch of something in these. Some of them are like that, where they've just got a hard spot, and you kind of get past that hard spot and they're clear. But these couple just not having it. Yeah, so what I'm doing is I'm just using that, like I said, to get past hard spots. You've got virtually no leverage grabbing this thing and twisting it. So I may be putting 10 foot-pounds on it, 5 foot-pounds. What happens is this one, it just gets to the same point and it stops. I could definitely force it. I could add a lot more and no problem turn it more, but it's too much resistance. It's obviously enough to where this is a problem. So, I don't know. I'm gonna have to probably chase the threads. I just wish I could see figure out what's going on. It doesn't really make sense. Like, they look fine from up here. I've definitely got whatever was in there cleared out. So, I'm gonna take another look. That was pretty well executed, if I do say so myself. All right, well, we got all the studs in. We got them all to the bottom. Everything's good. So I went back with this one, PB'd it, and it went in. So we're good. Gasket's on. I cleaned the gasket up. Should be good to go. If the gasket leaks, it's because it got oil from taking it on and off 6 times, but cleaned it the best I could. Okay, now we just gotta put our nuts on and torque her down. Yeah, that was a little tiring by the end there. 26 nuts times 4 or times 3 passes each. All right, the head is on and torqued down. I got to do one more pass just to make sure they're all torqued down. Just to be safe, I always go over it one more time. Just give it a little nudge, make sure it's there. And yeah, then we can install the little girdle plate, injectors, feed tubes, all that stuff. So just taking a breather. That was definitely tiring. I'll be honest. Mint, look at that. That all went in easy. All right, we're gonna brake clean these feed tubes out, and we are going to blow them out with some air as well, just to be thorough. All right, feed tubes are in and torqued. Injectors are in and torqued. All that stuff's good to go. So the next thing we need to do, I'll show you. To put this on, obviously it just goes in, bolts on top, but you have to clearance this spot right here for that head stud. Normally the head bolt would sit down low enough to clear there, but the head stud does not. So cut this whole corner out here, and then that way, 1, it can sit flush and seal, but 2, we'll be able to get the nut off and pull the stud out if we ever need to without taking this off. Not that it's a big deal to take this off, but you know, we could pull the head out as a way more complete unit. So let's get to it. All right, you can see we took that corner off. Now we're gonna see if it fits. Do carbide burrs on a die grinder. Oh my God, so amazing. They're so useful for so many things. We're able to just clean that corner up. See if she fits. Now we can change the gasket and actually bolt this thing on. All right, so before we go any further with this stuff, I've got something I wanna do. I wanna paint the valve cover and basically the intake cover, which is over here. I want to paint these both wrinkle red. I was going to paint the whole engine, but it's like you end up having to paint all these pulleys, and I don't know, I feel like a lot of stuff gets painted that shouldn't get painted, you know, like all this stuff, and then all the bolts have paint on them, and I'm sure someone could do it in a way that would last, but I'm not that person, so I feel like if I do it, it might look real nice. Well, it probably won't even look real nice from the start, and then we'll definitely deteriorate and end up looking like crap. So I think as of right now, I've decided not to paint it, and I am gonna wrinkle red these two, so at least we'll have like a nice accent color. The valve cover will look nice, and yeah, I think that's my rough game plan. So I need to get these cleaned up, get some wrinkle red on them because it's going to take some time to dry. So while we're doing everything else, that can be drying. Let's get to cleaning. All right, we gotta let that dry for about 10 minutes, then we'll come back, hit it with another coat, and then we gotta let it dry for a good bit. But while we're waiting on it to dry, I'm gonna get back to assembling the rest of the engine. So we need to get, our injector wiring on, we need to get this bolted down, our valve train, all that good stuff. Let's get into it. All right, fresh gasket, now we can install it. All right, the next thing we need to do to button up essentially the top end / rotating assembly is the push rods, valve bridges, rocker arm stands, and rocker arms. So we've got them all organized 1 through 6, which is kind of reverse of how we are now, but it'll work out just fine. So yeah, let's start slamming them in. All right, all the rocker arms are in and completely torqued down. I need to set the valve lash still, but we will also have to reset it. So basically with doing the head gasket and the head studs, I think specifically the head studs, but this might be standard procedure on head bolts as well. But basically what you gotta do is run the engine with no coolant, get the oil temp to 180, shut it off, and then re-torque the head studs and reset your valve lash once everything is heat cycled. So we will have to do that, so we're not gonna go too crazy with that right now. What we need to do now is replace our manifold and get this whole manifold turbo setup back on the engine. So you can see this is the one that came on the truck and it's got this giant crack. You could feel tons of exhaust coming out of there. So obviously that's no bueno. I was gonna go compound turbo, which I might down the road, but again, it goes back to the idea, that we have with the injectors, just get the truck running and driving and then deal with upgrading it and doing all the other stuff later. Like running and driving is the most important part. So luckily, there was a viewer who happened to have a 3rd gen manifold sitting in his garage, and he messaged me, and he totally understood, like, my life. He was like, I'm sure you're busy, you probably won't get this. Messaged me again, was like, hey, I live local, I'm just gonna have my daughter drop it off. I got that message after it had been dropped off, and it was sitting in my mailbox with this letter. Love the channel, hope this helps. Doug. So huge shout out to Doug for sending, having this manifold dropped off. His daughter wrote a little letter on there, like, I told him this was weird or something. It was really funny, but super appreciative because I would not have had time to go to Ocala to get it. So anyway, got the manifold, which again, need to swap the turbo onto this manifold with our new gasket and get it on the engine. All right, so I realized I forgot to paint the intake horn, and I think it's suiting to paint it wrinkle red as well. So I threw a coat of self-etching primer on it and start the wrinkle red process. Luckily, we don't need to put this on until we're like the engine's in the truck, so we're not gonna be waiting on it to dry. I'm also, on my Miata, putting a new Lexan rear window in. So my roommate Ben sells Miata parts, and he had one of these sitting around, and he was nice enough to give it to me to put on my car because mine was really nasty. Like, you can't hardly see through it. It's needed replacement for a long time. So anyway, I've been tinkering with that while paint's been drying, but our paint is dry. Our wrinkle red came out really good. I'm really, really happy with the finished texture on all this stuff. So, super stoked on how it came out. Had a little bit of an issue here, just the paint wanted to run off, but it's good enough for me. So anyway, got our turbo swapped over to our new manifold. I had to go get some washers because this flange is a little thinner than, I already threw it away, but my old turbo manifold flange, but everything else is good, new gasket. Now we just need to get this on the engine. Manifold's on. I need to hook up the drain. I got a new gasket for that, so I need to pull this tape off, bolt that up, and tighten our feed line down, and we're done on this side. Oh man, well this is gonna be a real time consuming project. We gotta change the water pump, so you know, I saved the hardest for now. Oh, I would say that and this thing won't come off or something. Oh, it's on there. Oh, there we go. Oh, we need to clean that surface up. Oh, that's interesting. This must have been replaced at some point with a janky cheap one, so this is why you buy OEM parts, ladies and gents. Look at this one. Nice cast impeller wheel, stamped steel bent one. I mean, just looking at them, I can tell you that this one probably flows a lot more. This is OEM Cummins. This is probably some cheap aftermarket replacement. Again, that's why I buy OEM stuff, if I can. Yeah, we need to clean that up. And I went ahead and lubed up this one. Oh, I didn't pay attention to which way it came off. I guess it probably only goes on one way. Yeah, it's definitely this way. Yep. I'm gonna look up the torque spec for this since it's got a rubber O-ring. Funny, when I put together like the LSs and stuff for drift cars, torque spec, what is that? I mean, I torque important stuff like head bolts and things like that, but all this other stuff, you know, it's gonna come off before it becomes a problem. It's kind of the way I see it. You know, the drift cars, the engines are expendable, we're beating on them, we're changing them up every couple years, so, but something like this, I intend to have this engine in the truck for as long as I can, so I wanna make sure everything is proper. So, anyway, beautiful new water pump's on. That's done. Now we can move on to the injection system. To do that, it's on this side. We're gonna need to move the engine a little bit so we can get to everything a little more easily. If I was smart, I would have waited until after the engine was in the truck to paint the valve cover, because now I can't put it on because I'll damage it. But not putting it on, it is sketchy. Gotta be careful and make sure nothing falls in here. So these ECUs mount to the block. They are weatherproof. I'm sure they're not waterproof, but this thing was covered in mud. I was trying to figure out how I was gonna clean it, and I ended up washing it in the sink. Not like soaking it underwater, but using a sponge and some water and just scrubbing the crap out of it and then cleaning it off. So It's a lot better than it was. I mean, it was literally just all mud. You can see some remnants. I didn't go too crazy. It was bad, very bad. Okay, so now next orders of business, several orders of business. We need to get our DCS fuel filter housing delete plate off. So this basically is going to replace our fuel filter housing, hold our fuel lines. It actually goes this way, just like that. And then this one will be our feed, which will hook up to the Ford system, which we got to get a different lift pump for. Either way. So we got that. We've got our sensor adapters. So we need to swap in some of our sensors from the Ford. These are all of our Ford sensors. I put them in a bag. So we need to swap some of those in so they'll communicate with the conversion harness we have, and that'll all communicate with the Ford well, so the Ford will know what the coolant temp is and all that good stuff. A lot of little stuff to do. We got to trim this ECU bracket, get the motor mounts on. I want to have the motor completely ready to go in by the end of today. So let's get to work. That feeling when you think something's drained and it clearly is not. Oh, now we got diesel all over the fingers. Oh, man. Buying a complete gasket kit is like almost always the way to go. Even if you think you're not going to use all of them. You know, I was missing one of these banjo bolt washers, but the gasket kit I got, the OEM Cummins gasket kit, came with all new ones. Like for every single banjo bolt. I do need to find these bolts. I need to pull up the torque specs for the lines themselves, because that's definitely an important torque spec with these crush gaskets, but we did replace all of them, so I'm happy about that, especially the one at the back of the cylinder head. That would be a nightmare to change in the truck, so I'm glad we got that changed. We have the ones for this as well. We have the ones for everything. That is a nice thing about buying a kit like that. It comes with all of them. This I need to plug off. We don't have to worry about dirt getting in there and getting lodged in an injector. This piece is so nice, this DCS piece. Man, that looks fancy though. I can't wait to get the wrinkle red cover on here. That is next. I question whether or not I put this on backwards. It is for sure backwards. At least I put it on the right way first. Take a gander and admire it for a second. It is one thing I like about doing wrinkle red or something like that, just an accent color, is it's such a stark contrast from the wrinkle red to all the old junky stuff. Anyway, yeah, that's done. Everything's torqued. All the fuel stuff's done. If you guys didn't see kind of the earlier videos on this, so I'm using DCS, Diesel Conversion Specialist, and their swap kit, and they have this 40-something page color instruction booklet covering everything, like motor mounts, telling you where to grind, the ECU bracket, like everything. I mean, this, to me, this says everything about a company and their product. The fact that they have this detailed of an instruction guide for you, I mean, awesome. I've never had a swap kit come with this detailed of instructions. So anyway, I was just looking through it for sensors and stuff, and it made me think about it. So anyway, I'm going to do the mounts since I'm already open on this page. We'll do the mounts, get the ECM bracket on, and then we'll move on to the sensors. All right, now we need to figure out how much of our ECU bracket we need to trim. I mean, this thing almost works. Really just the end right here. Sweet. I'm gonna leave this out though. This ECU, I'm gonna leave it off until we put the engine in, because it'll be pretty easy to get to with the cab off. And that way we don't smash it on something. Oh man. These are gonna be a bit of a struggle, aren't they? You know what, let's be smart about this. PB it. In doubt, PB it out. It's probably not gonna work well because these are sealed threads, but we're gonna try. So we're doing 2 coolant temp sensors. I'm assuming one's the oil temp sensor. There's 3 that came off that Ford engine. They're all the same, the exact same sensor. Literally, it's kind of wild. But anyway, it calls for using 2. A lot of what this is, though, is just keeping the factory Ford computer happy with all the information it's going to want to see. That's the difficult thing about these newer vehicles, and why using a company for a swap kit is the way to go with stuff like this, because trying to figure out all this stuff yourself, sure, maybe you could do it, but it's going to take you a long time. So anyway, let's try the big boy. I'm a little scared, to be honest. I probably shouldn't use this. Oh no, we're good. Is anyone else OCD about, like, when you've got a nut and a nut like this, trying to line them up? Sweet, okay, got that done. I'm gonna get the rest of these in, and then whatever else is next. All right, so we got a new gasket for this. We got our little PCV thing needs to go on here. I'm gonna try real hard not to get this dirty. The problem with wrinkle red is real easy to get it dirty. It always feels so nice when you got a big project and you've got all this crap on the workbench and you're finally like clearing the stuff off. So satisfying. Oh, we're stuck. Get off there. Oh, that was not graceful. All right, new gasket in. Oh, hands are a little dirty. Like I said, we cannot touch this with oily hands. All right, time to put it on the engine. This is gonna be real satisfying. Oh, buddy. Ooh, she looks like a beaut. These are quite oily. Surprised my Cummins gasket said it didn't come with those. Dang, look at that. I love it. Oh, it looks so good. Oh, the only downfall is we got to put this cover on it. I mean, I guess we don't have to, but we really got to put this guy back on there. See how much of it hides. Oh, pretty much the whole thing. Well, we'll leave it off for now, just to make it a little more exciting. I am hyped, man. This thing really came together. Oh, it looks great. So last thing we got to do tomorrow is we got to torque down the adapter plate, because I just like ran them in with the impact real light because I was planning on taking it off to paint the whole engine, but I decided not to paint the whole engine because I wanted to do the wrinkle red accents. Anyway, we got to do the billet flex plate, torque that down, torque the adapter plate down, and just kind of go through, check everything, make sure we're good to go. And then it's time to get the truck in here, the Ford, get it back in the shop, get the cab off, and throw this engine in it. And I mean, you guys know the rest. It's just plugging away at it, making our little stuff here and there, intercooler pipes, getting our cooling system back in, all that stuff. So, but I mean, the engine's ready. The engine is complete. So I guess that's going to be it for this video. Many more to come on the Fummins build. We do have a compound trip that I'm doing tomorrow. So it'll be compound trip, and then we'll be right back to the truck. I promise. Compound trip has been a planned thing. So anyway, I'll see you guys for the next one, though. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Goodbye.